And that eventually stretches our back muscles to such a point that we create an imbalance in our body. So, of course, I go and strengthen my back. So that would be my advice to oboe players. Know your body. Mm-hmm. Know how it works. So then when you go see a doctor, you have an educated conversation. Because I remember from my diagnosis of focal dystonia, I was still in Chicago, and I'll tell you, the first time they told me you have focal dystonia, I was happy. I was happy because, thank goodness it's not tendinitis, because if I had tendinitis, I need to stop playing for 2 months. I can't afford that. I have so much to do. Yeah, I stopped playing for 20 years. That the level of ignorance that I had about focal dystonia and about how our body works, it was at such a level that I actually thought, this must be good news because it is not tendinitis, not carpal tunnel. It was the only two names that I could recognize, right? So I don't want any other oboe players to fall into that trap. And the other thing, if I might, is that we know how to embrace the word denial. Denial is a powerful agent psychologically, and a dangerous one, I realize. But if a doctor tells me, okay, you have focal dystonia, you're going to have to quit the oboe out of frustration because you can't beat this thing. If I accept that, I would probably be planting potatoes or selling stocks or doing something else with my life and not doing what I love. So I needed to say, okay, neurologists, you made your case. I have focal dystonia, but I'm going to take a side path here, and I'm going to deny it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell myself that this could be a misdiagnosis, that maybe it's not as bad as it seems. My success in going around dystonia is that part of me is still seeking that elusive cure, like it is a pot of gold just around the corner. Now, we are reed makers. We know what frustration is, right? we have the skills to transform a miserable situation into something positive by tonight's concert. We know how to do that on the reeds, hopefully, and we need to use that exact same idea to transform our lives so we can do what we love.
Thank you so much for that. It's going to be so helpful for so many people to know that you can be your own best doctor. That's wonderful advice. I have one final question for you. If you could go back in time, is there anything you would want to tell a younger version of yourself?
Oh, that's deep.
Regarding reeds.
How long is your show?
For you, we've got all the time in the world, Alex. I mean, whatever you need, we're here.
Well, what I would... it's what I do with my students. You know, the fun thing about students is that they are my younger self. I have a chance to give to them what I wish I would have given myself. But when we are dealing with reed making, it is a very complex thing. Oboe playing, by comparison, is easy. We put the fingers there and we blow, and we make it sound beautiful. End of the story. With reeds, the variables are also complex. That my mistake, and a mistake that I would want to correct if I went back in time, is to look at the entire package as a unit. I will make a good reed today. That is unreasonable. Instead, I should aim for steps and let me understand how and why that tip works. Let me understand why is it that a crooked blank doesn't work. what is the physical part? Physics is fun. Engineering is fun. For all of us musicians who are constantly in the stars, when we put our feet in the ground and saying, what really is this? I would want myself, my younger self, to look at each step of the reed-making process and analyze it like I am a scientist. I actually know when is it that I became a good reed maker. Maybe it's because I was in Brazil. Maybe because I was buying reeds. Maybe I didn't have a reed teacher until age 19. Reed making was miserable. Mm-hmm. And my only way of dealing with it was to practice as hard as I could. One of the reasons I developed my fingers so well is that I couldn't play stuff like Schumann romances when I was a teenager because I didn't have a reed that sounded good. The only way I could get away with and play music is to play the fast stuff, right? So I learned Mozart concerto, I learned Strauss, I learned Haydn, I learned things that move fingers, because anything slow in having to make a 10-second long phrase or even a 5-minute long romance, good grief, it would be too painful. And I would end up biting and things will go down from there. So at one moment, I was at Oberlin, struggling with reeds, and I graduated. And Mr. Caldwell had at that moment 22 oboe students, if you can imagine, and all undergrads.
Wow.
And he said, look, I need help here. Next year, I need you to have 4 students for me. And so he hired me to be his assistant for the following semester. And I told him, look, Mr. Caldwell, people here know me. They know I can't make a reed to save my life. How can I possibly teach here and say, let me look at your reed? People are going to laugh at me. But he hired me anyway, so I spent that entire summer looking at that thing, asking myself, why? Why is it that a reed works? And that's when it dawns on me, this is about engineering, it's about physics, about doing things in a certain way, because that's how it's done. So I came back in the fall, and yes, I was met with the laughs in reed class. I said, give me a reed. And I worked and I said, Alex, what did you do? You learn how to make reeds, right? And I could fix people's reeds, could help them. But that's my personal advice for people. Forget luck. Yeah. Forget repetition. Forget thinking about the stars. It is engineering. It's just like making a car. You put them in assembly line, and sometimes I do that with students. I have them work on 20 reeds at once, right? If one of them breaks, you make another, but you make all 20 go together. You make 20 blanks, you scrape 20 tips, you scrape 20 hearts, and then you clip 20 reeds, and so on, so that you learn the assembly line. You know how to do each step over and over, and you do it for a reason, expecting a specific result. If there isn't, then we must have done something wrong. So we apply there the scientific method. Just like any other science, we get a problem, we analyze the problem, we devise a theory.
Sure. It is a science, and there is engineering involved and biology involved, but there's also passion, and it's very clear that you're very passionate about reed making. Thank you so much for all your words of wisdom today and sharing this heartfelt conversation about reed making and vocal dystonia and your journey. It was just fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'm glad to be of help.
Alex Klein, thanks so much for being a guest on Reed Talk today. And thanks to all of you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode.
We'd love to hear from you. Send your reed-making questions for our guests to readtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Sending good vibes from our Read Desk to yours, I'm Margaret Marco.
And I'm Courtney Miller.